All right, well, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm State Senator Nick Miller. Represent the 14th District, the middle of the Lehigh Valley, including Allentown, Whitehall, South Whitehall, all the way up into northern Northampton, parts of Lehigh and Northampton County. We're here today to talk about public safety. I really think it's a continued movement and investment that the state is making in certain programs. We're going to get some feedback on what's working, what we're seeing in the communities. I really do appreciate everybody joining us this morning. I feel like we've been at the Boys and Girls Club a number of times recently talking about all kinds of exciting stuff, investment in after-school programs and our education system. We had the Lieutenant Governor in recently as well. So, Katarah, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
I do want to just touch on a couple key wins from the state perspective in our budget. We just got done. We did $16 million more for 4 more new cadet classes at the state police level. $45 million in community-based programs to reduce violence through PCCD, including $5 million increase for successful violence intervention and prevention programs. We'll talk a little bit about not just our police forces and fully funding our police, but also prevention and trying to get ahead of crimes and 2 more investments, $5.6 million to protect against hate crimes, and $10 million for our Pennsylvania public defenders. Excited about this opportunity to talk through some of these items, but I want to just go around the table real quick and let everybody introduce themselves. So, Chief Marks, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Chief Michael Marks. I've been the police chief in Whitehall Township for the past 8.5 years, and overall I've been a police officer for 25 years, and I'm excited to be here, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Braley. I am the Children's Advocacy Director at Turning Point. Been there for about 3 years and social services for about 10.
Welcome to the Boys and Girls Club of Allentown. I am Katarah Jordan, the CEO here, and it is my job and my mission to advocate and push forward really the understanding that after school and summer programming is crucial in every part of the business that we run.
Thank you. Eric.
Hi, I'm Gorodzinsky. I work for the Jewish Federation of the Lehigh Valley. I'm the director of development. We do sit at the GCC, and I have unfortunately have to become the expert on applying for security grants when it comes to the community, and I am privileged to be able to share that knowledge with the rest of the interfaith community in order to help them achieve the level of success that we as a community have been able to in order to keep our institutions safe and make sure that everybody that walks through the door is able to feel safe and secure.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Charles Roca. I'm the Chief of Police in the City of Allentown. I've been the chief for over 3 years, and I'm approaching 23 years in the department. My commitment to the city is my passion. I wanted to bring stability, which is what I am doing, and we are very grateful to the state for their grants, which enabled us to get the monies for flock safety to come into the city, which is having good results for our team.
And thank you again for everybody for joining us. I do have a couple questions, discussion items, but really looking forward to talking about how do we measure success for community safety. There's a number of different pieces that go into community safety, whether it's our police forces or our community organizations that help out our seniors or even our students. And Katarah, we're going to start with you and talk about the Boost program. That funding, creates a program that will aim to reduce community violence by providing those after-school programs.
Absolutely.
You want to talk about what that funding means for the Boys and Girls Club?
Yes, so just to be incorporated, I think, into the governor's budget is a huge thing. This has been a long time coming, way before my time with the Boys and Girls Club. A lot of people have put in sweat and tears to bring this money about for after school and summer programming, and we are excited just for the opportunity to apply. It is going to really help boost our programming here at the Boys and Girls Club. It is going to allow for us to bring in additional staff when we talk about safety. Having the additional staff, making sure the child to adult ratio is prevalent is very, very important in our programming. So we are so excited boost. We can't hear boost enough in the
Yes.
Boys and Girls Club realm as of today. But we are excited that people outside of, our regular supporters are seeing the need, that people are really rallying around it, and that the community sees the investment. So very excited.
Yes, thank you. For our law enforcement, I want to just talk a little bit about what crimes you see most frequently, and then talk about everybody's favorite dirt bikes and ATVs. But kind of just overall crimes you're seeing frequently, maybe on the retail side or just in general. Chief Roca, you can start.
Thank you, Senator Miller. So what we're seeing in Allentown is some theft. We want to make sure that through our crime prevention unit that we're getting the message out. And you may know and be aware of our 9 p.m. routine where we encourage residents to lock up their vehicles, turn their lights on, and also the main thing, excuse me, is report crime. Because policing isn't done in a vacuum. It's done with community partnerships. It's done with letting the next generation of young people know exactly what the rules are. And we encourage our community to report things that happen. The old adage that you want to think of is if you see something, say something. And that goes towards the spirit of why we're implementing technologies to improve our efficiency. The other thing that we're seeing with respect to dirt bikes, we recently had a state law change there where we're able to seize the dirt bikes and go through the court process to ultimately dispose of the dirt bikes. And we are seeing less complaints of that. But this year what we've experienced is many individuals coming into our parks, swimming in the waterways, creating excess trash, which we responded to getting some messaging out and also taking action by hiring overtime details to address and just make people aware of what the rules and ordinances are in the city of Allentown. Because we want people to come, we want people to be safe and secure in that. And overall, it's not just about the crime stats, but it's about the perception of crime. And we also want to make sure that people feel heard. Regardless of what area code, zip code you live in, it's important that we are together. And I think with my partner and Chief Marks, through our connection in the Lehigh County Chiefs Police Association, we work together to make that happen throughout the region.
You mentioned perception versus like the statistics. Have you seen a decrease in like the ATVs and dirt bikes in Allentown and the average age of a rider that you'd catch? I think it's 27, but curious to what your thoughts are on that.
So the age of the dirt bike rider, early 20s to mid 20s, we're seeing it's super important that individuals that choose to ride illegally think about that and not do it, because we don't want to see them become a victim of a crash or anything of that nature. We can recently think of a unfortunate crash that occurred in Whitehall Township where there was loss of life, and we don't want that to be repeated because we want people to be safe. And I recently participated last year in a discussion with the Democratic Caucus of Representatives about the danger associated with illegal dirt bike riding.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Chief Marks.
I think a lot of what Chief Roca had to say is spot on and exactly what we as law enforcement experience throughout not just Lehigh County, but the Lehigh Valley and Pennsylvania. Overall, besides crime stats, which from time to time they will go up, they will go down, sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to them. But I think what's the most important thing is really two factors. One is the police, we don't know that we can't arrest our way out of any kind of situation. We must be able to form partnerships, and partnerships such as this, the Boys and Girls Club, is a great building block for our citizens and creating future citizens that are going to be productive members of our society. And this is just one example of what we need to do as far as forming that partnership with our families, with our community, to be able to help these children grow into fantastic adults that are going to do fantastic things in our community. And just what I've seen with the Boys and Girls Club, this is one of those programs that we look to support, and we look to give our support and make it a situation that will benefit everyone, not just the city of Allentown, but all of us that live in this region.
And in terms of, there's some investment to increase some prevention on retail theft. Obviously, Whitehall has the Lehigh Valley Mall, but any advice for businesses, like local businesses, to prevent theft? And
this is one of those cases where, on the flip side of, you can't arrest your way out of every situation and reduce crime. At the same time, you can't go lenient on every single crime as well. In the past 10, 15, even my entire career of 25 years, retail theft in Whitehall Township, it's the shopping capital of the valley, and we've experienced pretty much a steady amount of retail theft. It has never really dipped, it has never really risen to a dramatic level, but it continues to be constant. And my advice to the legislature and to the judicial is that, there is a time and a place for leniency and to be able to give people that break and give them that head start, but at some point you do have to hold people responsible, and they have to be accountable for their actions, and that would be one of those issues.
Okay, thank you. Switching gears, Aaron, so I know that within the last year, the JCC received the nonprofit security grant, and in a program that we did increase by $5 million in this year's budget. Could you talk about how the JCC utilized that grant and how it's helped the center?
Yeah, I'm even happy to expand to that and to say thank you for that increase from 5 to 10 million. I think last year, less than 50% of applicants were actually accepted into the program, and it really calls you to the attention of the need that we have as nonprofits when we are not able to manage this gigantic project, whether it's fixing the basketball court or the facilities that continue to break as they were built into the 70s. How are we going to get better access point into our facility? How are we going to better help our kids and our families feel safe when they're inside of the facility? And also, as unfortunately we have seen a rise on hate crimes in our communities, how are we going to ensure that everybody who's inside our facility feels safe and not pick another facility where they might not be getting the same services because they're coming to a facility they feel they can be threatened by the rise of hate that we have seen nationally and unfortunately has dripped down to our community. The JCC and all of our synagogues and agencies in the Lehigh Valley have applied for a PCCD because the state has really done an incredible job in facilitating the process of application that does not involve the same legal puzzle that a nonprofit security grant program at the federal level involves. It does not require for you to be able to do a threat assessment. It doesn't require an investment justification. The only thing that the state asks of every applicant in our community, including the JCC, is, have you been targeted of a hate crime in the past year? And if you have, tell me how we as a state can do to help your facility be able to improve that or solve that issue. So we, particularly JCC, we have new access points that has been facilitated to the state. We have better cameras. We have better communication system. We have hired through other grants and utilizing the PCCD person who is helping with the training of all the employees and all of the teachers and all of the members of the facilities. We have increase that training significantly so that everybody knows what needs to happen in case there's a need for an evacuation. Where do we go? What is our communication plan? And all of that when you're counting nickels and dimes and 50% of your membership is on scholarship and the other 50% is not willing to pick up the burden of $100 or $200 a month in security fees to help improve your facility, the state has really covered that particular gap that we found ourselves in, allowing us as a community to continue improving our programming because we know the state is our partner to help secure those facilities that otherwise we would never have an opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and just, the thoughts?
Just absolutely agree, and thank you. It's wonderful to have another nonprofit at the table that really understands those day-to-day, hard things that we deal and face. I think that while we talk about securing our buildings and that aspect of the crime, we also need to talk about the well-being and the psychological damage that it does to the members. That's huge. So as we talk about putting money towards trauma-informed care training, towards making sure that our staff are prepped and ready when those things do occur, need to go into that funding as well. So thank you for mentioning, definitely the buildings and cameras and lights and secure doors, but making sure that we have are either partnered with or have those mental health supports that can come and kind of mend some of the psychological trauma that goes on with crime.
And just so everyone knows, so the nonprofit security grant, those are resources for places of worship, community centers, and other entities to equip themselves with security measures. And obviously, JCC's was a recipient of that. And with that rise of hate crime, I mean, it's been very useful here in the Lehigh Valley and across the Commonwealth.
And if I could just add one more thing of the thoughtfulness of the state as this program has increased and improved from year one after the Tree of Life synagogue shooting, that the state got together to put together this money very quickly this year in particular, or starting from last year. We also have the capacity to hire or to cover some of the security, physical security in our buildings, and that's really helped our community and other communities, particularly during high attendance at our facilities, to have a private security person doing the security costs to ensure that the police can do the policing where it's needed the most, and we don't have to go to them to ask them to have a patrol outside of our facility. If we can hire our own security, it's really a game changer for a lot of our facilities, and the cost of private security in our facilities is something that we can't even dream of if it wasn't for the PCCD grant and the work that the state is doing to increase that funding. It's really has been of tremendous value for all of our communities.
We're glad to hear that. Thank you, Aaron. So shifting gears again, this past budget increased funding for domestic violence services by an additional $2.5 million. There's the Department of Human Services line item. We've got 59 domestic violence programs that serve almost 90,000 victims annually. However, they need more funding, and in a single day in 2023, 827 requests came in and were unmet due to lack of financial resources, including 471 for emergency shelter. It's obviously an alarming trend, and the need is needed. The need is there, and increased support is critical. Braley, what do you think about in terms of how we can better protect victims of domestic violence, and what resources are currently available, and what additionally could we be doing?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. So I agree. I think the average amount of nights survivors stay has increased from 60 to 90 days. So on average, they spend about 16,000 nights at these facilities. We serve about 3,000 families. The calls are increasing. I think being here as the Director of Children's Services, one of the things that we can do is focusing on the children and focusing on the teens. Agencies like the Boys and Girls Club, we have recently increased our efforts in prevention measures. I think there's a difference between intervention and prevention. When 1 in 3 teens are most likely to experience an unhealthy relationship, or at least see that in their home. And if home is unsafe, the place they will go to is their community, and it's the streets. So we've been really focusing our efforts on providing education to students in schools about what are the tools you need to engage in a healthy relationships? What do you do when you see this in your home? Who do you go to when you're surrounded or faced with that action? I recently, we created a group called Spaces, where we're educating young boys on how to create safe spaces for them and how to create safe spaces for others. And Allentown has been a really big partner with us in those groups. And you wouldn't believe the amount of boys that show up and hold each other accountable and show up on time for those groups. So maybe they may be a little late for class, but they show up on time for groups. They engage in conflict resolution. Those are the tools that when they leave those groups, they go back and they take to their communities, and they take to their families. Kids that don't get those supports are most likely to become perpetrators of violence in the future. So I think as just overall, it's increasing that effort to really focus on the next generation of students that are coming up, because the adults that the chiefs are dealing with now were once kids, were once in those schools, and who knows if they had support or had that prevention piece or had that mentor that showed up. So I'm honored to be at this table because one, I'm here because of agencies such as Boys and Girls Club and Turning Point that kind of stepped in as a mentor and as a guide, and I'm able to sit here today. So I think that one of the big things that come to mind is just really focusing our efforts on really educating that next generation of kids to be able to engage in healthy relationships down the line.
Yeah, I think taking the proactive approach is crucial. And I've got two more questions, and we're going to get to the police chiefs to ask about their thoughts on how we can be more proactive in crime prevention. But what do you think in terms of like post-pandemic, obviously the social emotional impact that we saw in school districts? I served on the Allentown School Board prior during the pandemic, and the need for mental health services just through the roof. Any thoughts on kind of how we continue to address that aspect of things?
Yeah, I think the pandemic was a real big shift for students. I think one thing that we noticed is that kids kind of lost the ability to fully interact with each other in a safe way, and you can kind of see those struggles in the classrooms, and just when we reach out to them. So I think one of the things that we've done is that we've made our services accessible. Our services there's no cost, so we are actively reaching out to schools and telling schools like, hey, what can we do to make our services available to your families, not only the students, but to your families as well? What can we do to enhance our services? So we have virtual services, we have in-person support groups, we offer counseling, we offer extracurricular activities, after-school programs. What can we do to make sure that we are reaching kids where they are and that we are reaching families where they are? And honestly, kids just need a space to just be kids. This building and teen center, the pandemic did have an effect on them, but they need a space to just kind of process that and just kind of vent about it, and kind of really just have an adult that will listen to them. So I think that's one of the big things that are coming to mind in terms of prevention.
Katarah, any thoughts on that in terms of post-pandemic and our students?
No, what you said was absolutely right. And I don't know if there is a post-pandemic. When we get that question, it's kind of like this is where we are, and how are we addressing our children today? Thinking about where they could have been and all of that is okay, but I think that we really need to, as you said, meet them where they are, make sure that they have the programs that they need to succeed, but the mentor piece I think is huge, and I think that's where Boys and Girls Club does a really, really good job. This Turning Point does a really, really good job of making sure that they are partnered with individuals and understand how their actions can lead to different outcomes. And I think that is that needs to be a community effort. That can't be just the organization thing. That has to be the school district, the police officers. They have to feel safe in your presence. That's why we bring the police into our buildings. That's why we bring the fire chiefs. That we don't want them to see them on the street and to feel like they can't have a conversation or have, or ask for advice on a certain topic. So we want to kind of remove those stigmas, and I think it's super, super important that we are, again, just teaching them those conflict resolution pieces, how to handle conflict. We're also doing a huge, we're really looking into building out our teen strategy here. And a big part of that is teaching cybersecurity and safety. How do we make sure that, those conversations, so much happens on the computer, on their cell phones. How are we helping them combat what could be down the road? How do we help them make better decisions in that, and really, gain some real good skills that they can take throughout the rest of their life? So. Yeah,
and that's a good point. I mean, social media, it's a whole nother conversation we could have. And you made a really good point in terms of the school district being a partner, and we've been working on some workforce development programs, and I think the pandemic highlighted some significant gaps. Obviously, Allentown, the Lehigh has a huge Latino population, and making sure that the folks that English is a second language, that they have resources to, one, know where the resources are to go for help, whether it's housing or education opportunities. That's important too. One other question, then we're going to kind of wrap up with some proactive approach. We'll go around the table for that. But we talk a lot about economic development and education, community safety, and really the environment that we have, and addressing blighted properties is one of them, and how cleaning up blight can protect community members and some pride in our communities and the neighborhoods. Continually to invest in certain programs there for the municipal level, but any thoughts from any of us on just the overall environment of our neighborhoods and making sure that they're clean, and anything that we could be doing more from the state level? Chief?
I just want to give a shout out to Vicki Kistler, our Director of Community Economic Development. Building inspections, rental inspection, I think that it's important because in Allentown, we want to make sure that people have a house that they feel safe in, regardless of the area they live in. And we're committed to that in Allentown to do that. The Mayor Turk has made it his platform for a cleaner, safer, healthier city. And I think the investments of what's important in the upcoming budget season for the city, supplemented by grants from the state, really dig at the issue there. Allentown recently announced the Recompete grant, which is going to be marvelous for many people in the neighborhood. I always say policing is one piece of the puzzle. We're not going to arrest our way out of blight. We're not going to arrest our way out of homelessness. I want to be clear, homelessness, drug addiction is not a crime, but there's actions that manifest that we want to make sure that we can change people's hearts and minds. And it starts not only with our youth, but to give those who have made bad choices an opportunity to come back and give back to the community. We're engaged in many different programs to meet the needs of our community, and I think policing as a job is also evolving. And I think it's something that is a good thing because we get to collaborate with our state partners, with our nonprofits, with other police agencies, and I will always be an advocate for that. And within the city of Allentown, Mayor Turk is going to bring this forward through his directors of different departments and for the investments that are made in Allentown. And that will have a payoff into the surrounding townships and boroughs. The mayor always says, and I'll echo this, you can see it on our patch here, it's the heart of Allentown, right? And that's where we're at. And I think what happens in Allentown affects the communities across the board, and we want to be responsive also to any concerns that people might have relating to that. But to blight specifically, I believe our community economic development team is working hard to do the inspections, ensure that the codes are followed up with, and with the support of City Council, we can make a lot of positive change in our communities.
Yeah, and I appreciate the work you're doing on that. Kind of just overarching general question to wrap up here, it's what can we proactively be doing as a community to make the Lehigh Valley a safer place? And, there's a lot of things that, we didn't touch on today that could be entire conversations, whether it's social media or economic development and workforce development. But we just want to go around and get just overall proactive thoughts on addressing community safety, what other support we can be offering as a state to make that happen. Chief Marks, you want to kick us off?
Sure. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me, and it's one of my passions, is the mental health and improving and upgrading mental health laws that have been in existence well before I was born. And they're not addressing the needs of today's society and the people that are living in our communities. And I think that is unfair to the generations coming up. And it's a matter of re-examining these laws, not necessarily needing to create new laws. I mean, I know I did a research project years ago where I had a call out to the state because I couldn't find the answer of how many laws we have on the books in Pennsylvania. And the poor person's answer to me was, I don't know. That's kind of a shocking statement coming out of Harrisburg, that you don't know how many laws we actually have on the books. So therefore, my opinion is that we should need to move forward with improving on what we have. And again, working with all these different segments of the population when it comes to, especially the ground zero seems to be the mental health aspect of it. And if we help develop those into a more modern process, we'll be able to hopefully really make positive impacts on some people's lives that not necessarily would have had it now. And that goes across not just for our youth, but when we touched on social media, one of my pet peeves, but when you do look at the Facebook comments and social and Twitter or X comments, and we need to go back to a point where we're more social and we're more engaging and less angry. And I don't know if that came out of the pandemic or if this was just a train ride that we've been on, but our society in general needs to be more accepting of one another and less critiquing and quite frankly nasty with other people. So that's kind of my building blocks to where I think we need to be. I don't, as I said before, we can't arrest our way out of this, We have laws in place. The police officers are sworn to enforce the laws, whether they like that law or they don't like that law. So maybe it is time that we start looking at some of these things that we have on the books. Are they really necessary? And that would be kind of my brief comments and my brief thoughts.
Yeah, and appreciate the work you're doing in the mental health. We met prior and talking about some of those laws that need to be modernized. And it's not an easy lift to get that done, but it's definitely needed. So thank you very much for joining us today. Braley?
Yeah, I forgot who mentioned the word trauma-informed. I think it was you. I think there needs to be an active, be intentional about showing up that way for our communities, and what that means is just understanding people and what they're dealing with and where they come from. I think Chief spoke about just that sense of there's so many emotions out there right now that people are dealing with, and I think this roundtable is the first step to just engaging agencies together and kind of providing, hey, what can you do that can enhance what I do, and what can I do that can enhance what you do, and we begin to build those partnerships. I also think the last thing is showing up in the communities that we serve in. I think every student that I've encountered kind of has this sense of why are you here? I had a student ask me one time, why do you keep showing up? And I'm like, wait a minute, because I believe that we can figure this out, and that question has stuck with me. So I think our community needs an answer to that question of why is this important, and why do you feel like I'm important in this community? And I think when we start to do that, I think things will begin to change.
Yeah, so. Definitely. Appreciate that.
course.
Katarah?
Yeah, all phenomenal answers. I think that here at the Boys and Girls Club, it's really our job to create structure for our children. They are out of school longer than they are in school, and we need to make sure that when they are out, we are providing structure and fun, and things that really keep them engaged and want to learn and brighten their horizon. So that is our job here, and we do that again in collaboration. So we talked a lot about that throughout the panel, but just making sure that everyone is on board with that. Our children in this community is everyone's responsibility, not the Boys and Girls Club, not the police. It is everyone's responsibility to make sure we are preparing the next citizens that are going to be serving us here. So all of those things are very, very important, and I would just close with more things like this need to happen, I think, in our community at the community level. So making sure that student voices are around the table, making sure that families are around the table. I can't speak for the hundreds of members that we serve, but I would love for them, to be here and to really talk about how violence has interrupted their lives, how they carry it when they go into the classroom, how they don't have a safe environment at home and their mom loves them, but what's happening outside is different from what's inside of the loving home. So I really think having all of those voices around the table is what is going to help us really move forward.
Yeah.
So thank you.
And appreciate being a host again.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. Aaron, thoughts?
Of course, everything has been said, so I don't want to repeat it. I think one of the important points that we have starting to come, unfortunately, and then particularly adds to the social media point, is that we need to update our hate crime legislation to allow the law enforcement to be able to act upon certain things they get to see. We're a significant community that hosts a lot of minorities here, and while reinforcing our facilities might avoid a bad person to come into the JCC or the Boys and Girls Club, they don't just pack up their bags and go home. They follow to the next facility or the next community who's underprotected. And a lot of times the police cannot act, or law enforcement, whether it's at the state level or at the local level, cannot act until certain burdens have been covered by the current legislation. So while I, of course, agree at 100%, just because I have you here and you're an elected official and you serve and help write our laws, I would say taking a look at the hate crime legislation that exists currently and updating it to the reality that we're living today would go a very long way into ensuring that our communities are truly safe places, and that our law enforcement have the tools that allow them to be much more proactive to ensure that nothing bad comes to our communities.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we'll follow up and talk maybe some specifics around that legislation too. Chief Marks. Roca, excuse me. Sorry.
No problem, I was just waiting. I want to echo what everybody says here, and thank you for what you said, because it's important. Mental health, absolutely important to look at. I think mental health laws are key, but also let's not lose sight and forget about the law enforcement officers and making sure that they have the support with incidents that they're seeing throughout the job, such as a homicide, a dead child, things of that nature. It takes a toll. You know, they say you have an emotional box, and once that emotional box fills, you start to manifest maybe negative behavior. We want to make sure our officers are not only complying with policies and rules, but they also have the ability to do that. And I think through the state, there can be legislation done to support those efforts. With our youth investment is so important to continue to do that. We have a very robust PAL program, mentorship program through our community outreach unit, and we do touch a lot of lives in a positive way. And you can see through our citizen police academies that we're also reaching out to our communities. And I think investment in those type of outreach programs through the police department in many different jurisdictions and municipalities will reap massive benefits, because you have an idea of what a police officer might be. But if you meet on the level, like you were saying, Katarah, it'll be something where eyes are open, like, hey, you're actually human. You know, you're not just somebody behind a uniform. And that's kind of the message that I want to send today. And in closing, you know, I just want to thank everybody that shows up to work every day and does the positive work to improve our community. And I have to say this, as I mentioned to Aaron earlier, I want to thank Governor Shapiro for his never-ending, ceaseless presence all throughout the state. I mean, it was great to have him at our police academy, providing wisdom to our police cadets, and also talking to our PAL kids and letting them know about the support that the state has. So I just want to thank the entire legislation, the governor's office, and everybody involved for supporting the city of Allentown and throughout the Lehigh Valley and in our state overall. So thank you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And, you know, we really do have some great partners here in the Lehigh Valley with Senator Boscola, our state reps, our mayors, and all have been at the table in addressing this, and appreciate you taking the time today. We've got good relationships with all of your organizations and want to continue to build on those and see if we can, you know, we've got plenty of notes here, but, you know, very insightful, and want to make sure our community is safe for all of our community members. And, you know, whether it's gun violence or trauma-informed, we've got a lot of work to do. You talked about, you know, just the overall positive or negative environment. You know, one of the reasons I ran for the state senate was to be an effective leader and kind of steer clear of that polarizing aspect. And to be an effective leader, you need good partners, and we have that. So we have a lot of the good things that we can do, we've got done, but a lot of work to do. And so with that, I want to thank everybody again for your time, and appreciate it, and we'll be in touch. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you.